Hi, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hey, how you doing? My name is Ash. I am a makeup artist and a book lover, and today is my August reading wrap up, and I talk about all of the books that I read. So I ended up reading about 19-ish books. I say ish because I am in the process of trying to finish 2 books because I'm technically filming this on the 31st. So technically, if I finish it before midnight, it counts. But I had a really good reading month. I really like the makeup that I did today. I am absolutely loving my Book Babe design t-shirt. I have all my bookish stuff just on. The necklace, the earrings, everything that I have on, I will try to link down below if it's still available. But I am so happy with everything bookish that happened in August. So I don't want to drag this out too much. I do this makeup, I talk about the books, I try some new stuff, and let's just get started with it. Alright, let's just get started with the makeup. I did already put on my moisturizer, which I used the Naked Sundays Cabana Cream. I am almost out of this, which is very sad. I really like this. It has an SPF of 50 in it. So good. And I did start my brows with my Elli brow pencil. I'm just trying to use this up to use it up, and then I want to switch to a very ginger color because I'm trying to get my natural hair back. I am going to be talking about all the books I read and trying out some makeup. Some of it's new, some of it isn't, and let's just get started. So the first few books I've read, as in the first 10, I read on my Kindle. I'm going to start with the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I got this in the shade 0. I tried this before in the past and it was too dark, so this is the lightest shade. Hopefully it works out for me. But I started with the Ice Planet Barbarians. I think in my last reading wrap up I said I was going to take a little break from reading that series, and then I didn't. Go figure. I started by going backwards because I realized that there were like extra short novellas that coincided with the first couple stories. So I read the Ice Planet Honeymoon with Vektal and Georgie, and then the one with Raahosh and Liz, and then Aehako and Kira, and then Rukh and Harlow. Those were the first 4 that I read. They were like around like 60 pages, so it was a quick read. And this is just an after story of their own stories of just like kind of like a sexy getaway. Ooh, that is so glowy. I like that. Ooh, yeah, that is a much better shade than what the original one was. Ooh, so shiny. I'm gonna pin back my hair because it is a little warm in here without any of the air on. And then the books 5, 6, 7, and 8 that I read were also short novellas set before the last book that I read. I can't remember off the top of my head which one that was. But it was Heaven the Barbarian's Baby. That was actually Ice Planet Barbarian 6.1. Ice Ice Babies is 6.2. Calm is 7.5. And Aftershocks is 8.5. You can't really explain what Aftershocks is without spoiling the series, but something happens to their group and they have to figure out what to do with their life, basically. Foundation, I'm going to go in with my Tier foundation. I've been really liking this. I have it in 10C Shell. It's fabulous. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to apply this with my very long, very curved nails, but I will try to make it work. So after the short novellas, I read the next 2 books in the series. The first one being Barbarian's Heart. This is Ice Planet Barbarians number 9. And this is about Stacy and Pashov. Stacy is the human and Pashov is the alien. And what happened in book 8 and in the 8.5 book Aftershocks is where Stacy and Pashov's story kind of picks up. They were one of the first couples to be like mated, and they already had like a kid and were already completely resonated and all that. So this is their story and dealing with the aftermath of this big tragedy that happened to the tribe. Tribe? Clan? You get it. These nails make it so hard to get into the creases. I really like this foundation. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, that's Barbarian's Heart. It's actually very heartfelt and very sweet, and I really liked how that story played out. I'm gonna go in with my Merit Bronzing Stick. This is in Quince. I've been using this like every day, and like I swear I'm not losing any product. It's gonna last forever, I think. And then the last Ice Planet Barbarian story that I read was Barbarian's Hope, and this is the story of Asha and Hemlo. They're both part of the Ice Planet Barbarian race, and they resonated several years ago, and Asha never like Hemelo. You don't have any choice in who you resonate with. She didn't want to be resonated to him. Resonation pushes you to procreate, and she ended up getting pregnant because that is the whole point of resonance. And she and Hemelo actually end up losing their baby just a few days after it was born. So it does deal with child loss and depression and the aftermath. Asha just kind of lashes out at everybody, and she's not handling it well. It's understandable. You lost a child. That's a horrible thing to deal with. So this is their story after the aftermath of Aftershocks, and they're in this new place, and they try to not rekindle their relationship. Hemelo, in a way, kind of gave up on Asha, just decided to move out, give her her space, and just let her grieve in whichever way is best for her, because him being around her wasn't helping. Lo and behold, the humans decide that they want to do a Christmas festivities, even though they have no idea what day it is, what month it is, or anything, because they're stranded on this planet. But they end up resonating again, and Asha basically tries to fight that resonance because she's terrified of being pregnant and then losing the child again. I'm gonna go in with this Colourpop Thanks blush. I'm scared to use this. I'm gonna do like 2 dots on each side. I'm just gonna blend it out with a sponge because I think that's gonna be best. Anyway, so they end up resonating again, and it's just their story of kind of rekindling their relationship and, you know, going forward and having a baby again. I never mentioned this in the first story because it always took place with the humans mating with the aliens. With this one, since it's 2 aliens, their race, they're pregnant for 3 years. That's a pretty blush. So those were the Ice Planet Barbarian stories that I read, and I gave them all basically a 4. And like, I enjoyed them. They're fun reads, there's a little bit of smuttiness, and it's just like a good time. Those were the books I read on my Kindle. I do have one more that I'll mention at the end, just because I'm not currently done with it. And then I read The Apprentice to the Villain. This is book 2 after Assistant to the Villain. This just came out in August, and I love this. I love it so much. I gave it a 4.5. This is by Hannah Nicole Mayer, which I may be pronouncing her last name wrong. And this picks up right after Assistant to the Villain, so you can't really delve too much into this story without kind of spoiling what happened at the end of the first one. But basically, Evie moves from being the assistant to the apprentice, and she is really coming into her own, I don't want to say wickedness, but villainy, I guess. The villain isn't technically like a villain. He's like, what is it, like an anti-hero? And this has like the beautiful like purple edges. I love that. This story, like I said, follows Evie. I'm gonna go in with my concealer. This is the NYX Bear With Me. Usually I just squeeze this on my face. Guess I'll go in straight with my sponge. I know that might be too much. Anyway, so Evie is basically, you know, becoming stronger in her own right, and she is trying to, you know, figure out her feelings for the villain. Same thing what the villain is trying to figure out how he feels about his weird little assistant. And the story delves more into what is happening in their little, was it village, town, whatever. You get obviously like an evil king. You get Kingsley, the little frog, is like my favorite character. I really hope in her future book she really delves into who Kingsley is and like everything that transpired to make him into a little frog. The story delves more into the problem that is happening in the, we'll call it village, and there's a prophecy involved. Oh, it's so good. It's such a fun, cozy read. Is it cheesy? I said this with the first one. It is cheesy, but it is just such a lovely story. I cannot wait for the 3rd one, which I think is going to take another year to come out. Can't yell at authors to write faster. I'm going to set with my Elli powder, and then I will move on to the next story. Moving on to my first 5-star read. This is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I could be saying that wrong. I bought this forever ago on Book of the Month, and I just didn't read it until now. I'll be honest, I had a hard time reading it. Not because the story is bad, like I said, 5-star rating for me. I had trouble reading it just because I was having a hard time reading at the time. So what I did was I actually got the book downloaded on Audible, and I listened to it as I read it, and that just made me go through it so much faster, and I really enjoyed it that way. I'm gonna go in with my Freck as I explain this story as best as I can. So you have Rune, who is a witch hiding in plain sight. This is definitely enemies to lovers, heavy on the enemies. The story takes place in the New Republic, where basically witches are not straight out outlawed, they are straight up murdered. Like, if you're found to be a witch, you are basically executed. And how you figure out that you're a witch is when you first get your period, when you first bleed. If your blood is black, you are a witch. Prior to her becoming 16 and realizing she was a witch, she lived with her grandmother, who was a practicing witch. And when the new order came with the New Republic and all witches were to be executed, her grandmother basically told her to turn her in to save herself, because at that point they weren't sure that Rune was going to be a witch. So she essentially, with the blessing of her grandma, but what everybody else thinks is she betrayed her family and turned her in for the good of the Republic. So you flash forward, she's 18 now, and she has been a pretty mundane witch for the last 2 years. She doesn't practice magic, because obviously you can't. And a way that people can tell that you're a witch is it's blood magic. So witches cast spells by, doing little cuts throughout their body, and they actually make really pretty designs with their scars, because it leaves behind silver scars, and that is kind of how people realize that they're a witch. And she has no scars on her body because she hasn't cut herself to hone any of her magic. But she's basically told herself that she has to be the one to help save witches. So what she does is she can do some mundane magic by using borrowed blood, old blood, menstrual blood. That's how she became the Crimson Moth. Now you insert Gideon. Gideon is the basically headhunter for witches. He hates witches with a passion. His family, besides his brother, were murdered by witches, and he's just not having a good time. Didn't help that he fell in love with a witch and she tortured him. So Rune basically tries to get close to Gideon, because Gideon is the head honcho guy. She can get some information from him. Gideon ends up trying to get close to Rune because he suspects her of being the Crimson Moth. So he does every little thing that he can to try to figure out if she has any casting scars, if she has any secret room in her house, whatever. And he can't find anything. So he thinks, oh, she's not a witch. So they end up becoming romantically involved, and then everything implodes in the ending. It's true, enemies to lovers, back to enemies. And the next book comes out, I believe, either in January or February. I'm so excited for that. Oh, I'm so excited for that. I'm going with my bronzer. This is the Heatwave bronzer from Flower Beauty. And if I didn't say already, I was powdering with my Kosas powder. I don't remember what I said. And then the next book I read was Her Soul for Revenge. This is by Harley LaRue, and it is book 2 in the Souls trilogy. So the first book is Her Soul to Take, and I love that. I gave this entire series a 5-star. I just really thoroughly enjoyed it. So this story follows Juniper and Zane. Juniper is what you can consider probably not the right word for it, but she was a failed sacrifice. So you have this little town in Avalon, you have the Liberi, who worship the Deep One, which is basically a fallen god, and they worship this, basically, it's like a sea creature. I don't know, it's really creepy. The story goes that 6 generations ago, when the miners were trapped, 3 of the miners survived by making a deal with the god, that in 6 generations, they will do 3 sacrifices to bring the god back to power. So we're in that timeline where you had the first book was about Raylan, this book is about Juniper, and then the third book is Everly. Her Soul for Revenge is Juniper's revenge story. She meets up with Zane. She ends up, giving him her soul in exchange for him helping her to exact revenge on the Liberi and kill Kent Hadley. And she has basically just been running since she was 18 because she got released from the mental hospital. I think it was the mental hospital. Meets up with Zane, and then they just work their way through the town trying to take down the Liberi. Go with my Luna Beauty blush. I'm gonna mix, I think, Stargaze and Spacey. So this is just a really fun read. I thought it was very spicy. Juniper and Zane are just like perfect psychos for each other. It was great. It was a great time. But yes, I really enjoyed this book. So good. For highlight, I'm gonna go with Unearthly Twilight. I'm hoping that this will work. It's a very just translucent shimmer, but it's so pretty. Like, so pretty. So the next book I read was Sinner by Sierra Simone. This is book 2 in the pre-series, and this follows Tyler's brother Sean and Zenny. So Sean is not religious at all, and all of these books play on religious tones and themes, and Zenny is actually Tyler's best friend's little sister. So I did give this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I listened to it on Audible. Yeah, I either listened to this on Audible or Spotify. I don't remember. But it was very spicy, just very good. So Zenny is actually in like the throes of becoming a nun. She's like 21, 22, something like that. And she has decided that she's going to basically give up her, I don't want to say give up her life, but you know, she wants to become a nun. Feels so weird to do that at such a young age, but you know, to each their own. But she has like a month until that happens, and she's basically given like almost like the go-ahead to just kind of explore. But of course she hasn't really tried anything sexual, so she wants to pursue those avenues to make sure that she isn't giving up something that she shouldn't, basically. Her and Sean meet for the first time in like 14 years. He hasn't seen her since she was like 7, so it's been a long time. And they meet up, and she kind of screws with him a little bit. He doesn't recognize her, and they end up having to work together in a way, and she propositions him to teach her things, and he ends up falling for her, and she has to make the choice between, I don't really get the whole thought that you have to either love God or love a person. They find the balance in between. All these books are about finding the balance. I will say that the age gap situation kind of like threw me off a little bit. I didn't like it that much, but the overall tone, the spiciness and everything lent this more to a 5-star rating. I'm gonna move on to eyes, and I'm gonna be using the Battybean Sigma Favorites brushes because why not? I mentioned in my August favorites that I was gonna try them out in this video. I'm gonna spray my face with my Urban Decay All Nighter Watermelon Setting Spray thing. I love this spray, and Urban Decay actually sent me a backup of it. I don't know why, but I am happy with it. Zoom in a little bit more for the eyeshadow portion. I'm gonna prime with my Anastasia eye primer, and I have like about 6 more books to talk about, so let's try to rapid fire this. Right, and then the palette I'm using today is the new one from Nomad. Which one is it? Fuji 5 Lakes? Yeah, Fuji 5 Lakes. Wow. This will be my first time trying Nomad Cosmetics. I bought 3 palettes, and this one is just so pretty. I love the packaging. It's like textured like a painting. And like this color story is just, oh, it's stunning. I will do a more in-depth video with this palette and the other palettes I got, and I'm thinking about buying more palettes because a few are launching on my birthday, but I'm so excited for it. So the next book I read was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, and I really enjoyed the story. I gave it a 4-star rating. This is about Piper Bellinger, who is like 28 or something, and she's just a spoiled rich woman, and she gets into some trouble, and she gets sent basically away to what is her hometown, which she hasn't been in since she was, I don't know, like 4, and that is all the way in Westport, Washington. So big difference from, you know, LA. I am gonna start with the shade Red Rowan here, this light brown shade, and this is the Sigma E40 brush. I'm just gonna put this right in my crease. So Piper is sent to this little town, and her sister decides that she's gonna go with her, and she meets Brendan, who is a sea captain. He does boating stuff. He's the fisherman that goes into like the rough sea, and like it's very harsh. I'm pretty sure there's like a show of it on the Weather Channel or Discovery Channel or something. They don't really hit it off. Brendan kind of judges her as nothing more than a spoiled little brat. He's not that much older than her. I think he's like 32 or 33. Anyways, Piper basically can't figure out where she belongs in the world. She doesn't feel like she fits in the LA party scene anymore. She doesn't feel like she belongs in like Westport. She, with the help of her sister and some very nice townsfolk, they end up renovating what used to be their birth father's bar. When Piper was 4 and her sister was just a baby, her father, who was a fisherman in Westport, died tragically on one of the fishing expeditions. So he has a lot of history in that town. Anyway, so her and Brendan don't really get along at first, but then they start spending some time together. You learn about what happened with Brendan's late wife and how they're navigating their relationship, knowing that there is a like 3-month time frame for it. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed it. There was one huge setback, and that is what happened with Brendan's wife. I'm gonna go into the shade, which is Koyo. You know, I took Japanese in college. Don't remember anything. So the whole setback that I had with this was, this is like, I don't want to call it like a trigger for me, but maybe it is a trigger. It's something that I hate seeing in books. I hate hearing about it in real life. I just hate it so much. It's one of my biggest fears. Basically, you learn that his wife, while he was out on a fishing expedition, she passed away suddenly from, get this, an aneurysm. Those terrify me. The thought of them terrify me. The fact that it can just happen. And it's terrifying. I read that, I set the book down, and I was like, why? Pick some other reason for someone to die. Yeah, that bothered me. But overall, it was cute. Except for that, I enjoyed it. I am very interested in reading the second book, which is about Piper's sister and Brendan's best friend. It sounds so cute. It's like friends to lovers, and I am so excited for that one. I was supposed to read it this month, and then I got kind of pulled into like other stories. I get in these moods where I either want to read a series like back to back to back, or I want to read like one book, read something else, and go back to it. I just didn't go back to it yet. So I'll try to get to that in September, but we'll see how that goes. But I love that. I love that. I do like Tessa Bailey's writing. I just wish that the aneurysm thing wasn't in here. And then let's go into Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I did talk about this a little bit in my August favorite, so I'm not going to go too in-depth with this, but this is Emmy and Luke. It is book 1 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5. I'm gonna go into Burnished Beach now. Going with the E55. I'm gonna pack this like here. So Done and Dusted follows Emmy, who is going back to her hometown because she had kind of like not necessarily a bad breakup, but she broke up with her boyfriend. She was taking some time off from professional writing. Barrel racing. That's what it is. I couldn't remember that in my August favorites. Barrel racing. She does that professionally. And she had a kind of like a bad accident that freaked her out, and she has just had a fear of writing again. So she decides to pack up, go back home, and kind of figure out what she's going to do with her life, and if she wants to continue, you know, racing professionally. So her first night back, she runs into Luke, who is her 2 brothers, their best friend. And he basically sees her for the first time in a few years, and he's like, well, damn, she's hot. And he knows, like, it's off limits to, you know, date your best friend's little sister. I was like, cool, whatever. So they end up becoming like friends. They weren't like enemies or anything. They just kind of orbited around each other. They never really like spent any time together because he was always with her brothers, so they weren't like in the same like sphere really. So he ends up kind of helping her to learn to ride again, basically not being afraid on top of a horse. And it's actually really sweet. It's a very quick, fast-paced read. It was really adorable. Luke is such a sweet character. He's seen as someone that's like rough around the edges. He didn't have the best upbringing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a fast read. I read it in a day in just a few hours, so I was very happy with that. I love the pigmentation of these shadows. Like, so far, I'm just very impressed. So the next book I read was Saint. This is the 3rd book in the pre-series by Sierra Simone, and this follows Aiden Bell and Elijah Iverson. So it's an MM romance. Aiden basically just ups and leaves his current life and studies to become a monk. So this takes place 5 years later, and Elijah and Aiden were kind of together, and Aiden broke his heart when he just up and left in the middle of the night. And when you find out why he up and left in the middle of the night, like, so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. I'm gonna go in with the E38, and I think I want to play Burning Bush. I'm gonna run this on my lower lash line. Aiden thinks that he is finally moving on from his past life, moving on from how he knew he hurt Elijah. When Elijah shows up at the Abbey, I stabbed my eye. And Elijah shows up at the Abbey just to tell Aiden's like, hey, just so you know, I'm getting married. And Aiden's like, well, fuck, there goes all my progress. This is definitely a second chance romance. Obviously things don't work out for Elijah and his fiance. Elijah's actually a writer, and he ends up going with Aiden overseas to travel to a few of the different abbeys, because I didn't know this, but monks make beer. Learn something new every day. Basically, Aiden is fighting his feelings that he still has for Elijah, and Elijah's not making it easy on him, and basically monks are celibate and they do not keep to celibacy. I feel like Elijah knew what he was doing when he showed up. He was never truly over Aiden. They do end up having like a beautiful relationship. I will say, when I read Sinner, I didn't expect to cry in that story. I did not see any warnings about something. You get to a certain point in the story and the Bell family is going through another tragedy, and the way that it was written, and it was kind of like all of a sudden, it brought me back to when we took my dad off his ventilator, and it was like the same, basically the same thing, and I started bawling my eyes out because I was just like so emotional reading that. I forgot about that. But for Saint, at the beginning of the story, there is a trigger warning that says that you can skip chapter 47 if you're uncomfortable with the thoughts of, you know, suicide and everything. And I was like, okay, I have the warning. I am prepared. I didn't end up skipping chapter 47. That was basically the chapter where Aiden finally tells Elijah the truth about the night that he left and the reason why he went into monkhood, and it was so sad. Basically, Aiden almost succumbed to his demons. He didn't realize when he was younger that how he was feeling was considered like depression, and obviously you learned that, you know, in the first book that their sister ended up killing herself because of what happened with their priest. And Sierra Simone has such a way with writing. It is beautiful and poetic and heartbreaking, and chapter 47 was just like right in the feels. I did also listen to this on audiobook, and I will say I enjoyed it. I did not like how the narrator sounded for Elijah. There was something like, I don't want to say it was like nasally or something, it just wasn't a voice that I pictured for Elijah, and it like threw me off a little bit. But my last note for this book was, I know what it's like to be in Aiden's head, to think that everyone would be better off if you were dead. And that's basically a summation of how he thought. He just thought people would be better off without him. So it was heartbreaking, but I loved it. And a Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. Again, I talked about this in my August favorites. And go in with an E27 and go into this darker shade. Gonna just run this here. So A Not So Meet Cute is book 1 in the Kane Brothers series, and this follows Lottie and Huxley. It is a fake dating scenario. It is very funny. I think Megan Quinn has such great writing style when it comes to banter, because she just writes the funniest stuff. Like, I am always finding myself laughing out loud when I read something from hers, and I just thoroughly enjoy it. I gave this book a 4.5 star. So you have Lottie, who is basically fired from her job. She has to move out of her mom's place, and she needs to help her sister expand her business, all while dealing with crushing student debt and not a lot of money in her savings. So one day when she's out on a walk in the sort of rich area with the thought process of like, I'm gonna find myself a rich husband that will solve all of my problems, lo and behold, she meets Huxley. Huxley is on the walk because he needs to cool down because he fluffed up. I go into yellow poplar. So he made the mistake of basically lying to a potential client, and he has to basically find someone to be not only his fake fiance, but also be fake pregnant. Ridiculous. So they strike up a deal, they hash out their plan and what they're gonna do, and it is ridiculous, but it's funny, and I love that. I'm gonna go into Diamond Fuji, which is like a blue shift. I'm gonna put that on my inner corner, which has a little bit of the red, and this is the E42. That's pretty though, even with the red behind it. Do a little bit on my brow bone. Ooh, yeah, that on the brow bone. So pretty. That was a Not So Meet Cute. And then technically the last physical book that I read is Soul of a Witch, which is book 3 in the Souls trilogy by Harlow LaRue. This follows Everly, which is the kind of bastard child of Kent Hadley. She is a witch. Her mother was a witch. She has a long line of witches in her family, and Kent is basically using her as the potential vessel for this god. This is about Everly and Callum. Callum is a archdemon that is super old. He fought the gods in their war in hell, and he became victorious, but doesn't mean that it worked out well. I'm gonna go into the shimmer here, Pampas Grass, and maybe a little bit of Golden Ginkgo. So Callum actually has like almost like a vision of Everly when he's in hell facing the god, and at this point he basically has given up kind of hope of things working out. But he gets the vision of her and decides to just wait for her for 2,000 years. So in present day, you have Everly ends up witnessing her brother commit the first sacrifice, and she ends up in her fright somehow teleporting. And where she teleports is to this house that turns out to be the house of her family, of her witch's coven, whatever. Ooh, these shimmers are so pretty. They would be so much better if I could use my finger, but my nails are too long. Anyway, so she goes to this house, and that's where she meets Callum, and he is, I won't say feral, but like almost comical. So Callum is working with Everly to kill the god. They end up, you know, having feelings for each other. Relationship and spicy time ensues. Everly is a surprising dominant, more like a switch, but like Callum likes to be dominated, you know, a little interesting tidbit. This story is mainly about Everly finding her powers as a witch because Kent kind of kept her downtrodden and just made to feel weak. So she doesn't realize how powerful of a witch that she is. So she trains to basically kill a god. So this story is definitely parallel to the first 2 stories, so it's all basically taking place at the same time. I will say this book was a little slow in parts just because it's all about Everly kind of just learning her magic, and there's not that much like action. I still enjoyed it. I really liked the relationship between Everly and Callum. I thought that was really nice. Overall, it was just a really great conclusion to the series, because like in the first book you learned about Raylan surviving her potential sacrifice, and then in the second book you get Juniper's revenge for her failed sacrifice, and then this one you get how the god is actually killed, and it's quite fun. Quite fun. I think I'm going to leave my eyes how they are. I'm going to do a little bit of an eyeliner with just a NYX eyeliner, but I want to quickly talk about 2 books. I have Middletide by Sarah Crouch. I have only read up to page 62. I am struggling to get through this because it's a thriller, and I'm realizing that maybe thrillers just aren't for me. I can't not guess, and it just ruins the whole thing for me. So I'm gonna either try to speed read this today or find it on like Audible or something if it's not too expensive and just like speed listen to it. I will try to finish it. If I don't finish it, I'm just gonna DNF it. I'm just not into it. But then a book that I am going to finish today is A la Folie by Nova Kane. This is a short novella. It's just over like 120 pages. This is a very dark romance set in a twisted circus. It's very interesting, very dark. You have Lux, who is the ringmaster of the circus, and you have Indy, who is kind of like an innocent lamb who is going to this circus for the first time. And what happens, I'm not that far into it, but like there's some messed up stuff that happens, so it is very dark. But I will definitely finish this today. I will leave my rating for this in the description below, along with this one if I finish it or DNF it, but we shall see. So I'm gonna hop off and finish up my eyes. I'm gonna do maybe just mascara today. I'm not feeling lashes, finish up my brows, and something on my lips, and I'll be back to wrap up this video. Alright, and here is the finished look all together. So real quick, I'll go over what I did. I did end up going with the lashes just because I messed up a little bit on my eyes. So in my waterline, towards like the beginning part, I have Cherry Pie from Colourpop, Beautiful Red. And then for all the black around, I have the e.l.f. Cosmetics No Budge Retractable Eyeliner. Best black eye pencil that I've tried. I accidentally just smudged it everywhere. It looked bad, so I had to go in with some lashes, and I used the Teddy lashes from Kiss. I finally got them. This is a brand new pair, so they're not sitting perfectly. It is what it is. And then my mascara is the one from Rare Beauty, which I forever cannot remember the name, but it will be accurate in the description. And then my lips are my go-to combo of Ashton from Colourpop and Haze from Anastasia. So real quick, I just want to say I really enjoyed this Nomad palette. I can't wait to play with it again and play with more like the blue tones. I think that is such a pretty palette. And these Sigma brushes are fantastic. I can't wait to use more of them. I want to buy more. I don't need more, but I want to buy more. Let me go ahead and zoom out to wrap up this video, but I am very happy with how my makeup looks. Alright, and here are all the books that I've read this month. I had a really good reading month, and I am very happy with pretty much everything that I read. Nothing was really a disappointment, and I can't wait to really get into my fall reads, which are going to be more like witchy, some spooky, just some cozy fall vibes. I am so ready for that. So all the makeup details and every book that I mentioned is going to be listed in the description below, so make sure you read through that because I always throw in a ton of information if you're interested in that. I am very happy with the makeup, the books, just this past month. It's been fun. There is no feasible way for me to move these books out of the way at this point, so I'm gonna wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. I have a lot more content coming out in September, and once we hit Halloween, it's gonna be officially 31 days of Halloween, so it's gonna be a very heavy last 4 months of the year, but I am very excited to do more. So if you want, you can follow me on my other socials. I'm artistryxashh everywhere. And if you want any more book content, you can follow me over on TikTok and Instagram at ashley_with2h's.reads. I try to post over there as often as I can, but sometimes I just forget. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!